So good evening, everyone. This is Kishore from Houston, Texas. So before introducing our speakers, before introducing about myself, you all must be wondering why all these sessions, right? Because last week, Mr. Raj Kamal Garu did two wonderful sessions, which were appreciated by all the community. There were sessions on how to get into elite colleges or what is the college admission process. There was a session on financial planning. We also did multiple sessions on how to control our mind in this type of situation, how to control your mind, how to meditate, various meditation techniques. We did a session on various affiliate marketing and other different business opportunities. One reason is, right, because we all, 99% of us, if there is a small problem, we get panic, we get anxious about it, we think too much about it. We don't see everything positive which is happening. Most of us are still in the jobs, we are safely sitting in the homes, but we don't see all those positive things. We are enjoying time with the family, we got some time to learn all these important concepts which we never got time. We don't see all those negative positive things. We only look at some negative thing, we feel anxious that okay, something might happen. Or so that's the reason why I wanted to have these sessions, right? We have nearly 5 sessions near last 10 days. We are doing another 5 sessions in next week. That's the reason where instead of panicking about something which may happen, may not happen, it's better we use this time productively, which can help us, our kids, our families, our community in a better way. Let us see what best we can do in this time instead of panicking. So with that, let me share a quick introduction about uh, myself and also the guest speakers here today. Most of you might have already known me, but I am Kishore, resident of Sugarland, Texas. I am an IT project manager with 20 plus years of experience. I worked with Wipro in USA, UK, India, and all different countries. Now I am working as a consultant with one of the biggest companies here in Houston, Texas. And one of my hobbies or passions is to share the information. Whatever I know or whomever I connect with, I try to share that information with all my community, my friends, relatives. So since last 20 years, it's not now. I started writing blogs. Then I started using Facebook groups. I started using WhatsApp groups. I want to share that information, share it to uh, as many of my friends or relatives or our community as much as possible. Because when you share information, right, only the way you share information, I try to share all such type of. So that's in the last 20 years. That's the reason I organized 200 plus webinars and seminars in last 2 years on all different topics, like with respect to education, immigration, taxation, medical webinars, investment strategies, business opportunities, various intelligence, about the mind, meditation, all these things. More than 200 plus webinars, and the group members know all these things because they did most of the seminars got huge benefit. I'm also a financial professional. In addition to my IT job, my second job is a financial professional. So in case if any of you need any support with saving strategies or will and trust or any investment diversification, right? Most of us generally do it in stocks or 401k, and we know the situation now. So in case if you need any help, free consultation, right? I don't charge anything. If you need any help there, I am always here to help you. And also, as I told you, we want to make sure we are using this time effectively instead of panicking. So we have nearly another 10 webinars in the next 2 weeks. So tomorrow we have at the same time, we have webinar on 529 college plans and alternate strategies for kids. Then we have on 4/4, we have a webinar on how to build wealth during recession. Then on 4/9, we have a webinar on importance of AP courses. On 4/10, we have a webinar on a primer on college essays. Then on 4/16, about Harvard, Stanford, Duke, Georgetown, Penn information session. On 4/17, Brown, Chicago, Columbia, Cornell Rice information session. So Mr. Raj Kamulgar, who got over 20 plus of years of experience, is helping us to do all these sessions. He already did the 2 sessions last week, and so we'll be doing this series of seminars, webinars, which will be useful to all our community. And if you need any more details, right, if you need recordings or if you need any material from the previous trainings, previous sessions, you can always email me at kishore.ramaraju@gmail.com. Right, this is about myself. And now let me introduce our guest speakers today. We have 3 guest speakers, and we have all 3 different age groups or 3 different speakers today for a change. So first, let me introduce, it's my pleasure to introduce Apurva Kanneganti. My family friends, Apurva is my family friend's daughter. Sanjeev Garu, Tirmala Garu, when I used to live in Memphis, we all used to go together to Nashville, all that Ganesh temple, all those things, and we used to have a great time. And Apurva was like 5 years or 6 years around that time. And it's a great right when you know one of your friend's daughter achieved something which is very rare, right? One out of maybe 20,000 or 50,000 will be achieving this type of scores, right? She got perfect scores in ACT SAT in class 2016. She got 24 out of 2400, ACT 36 out of 36. She is a senior in Harvard College now, class of 2020, and she already got admission to Harvard Medical School again, which is a rare feat, right? I don't think many from our community will be getting into Harvard Medical School for the MD PhD program. And she's in high school. She's top one out of 507 students. She also did international baccalaureate diploma. She is a National Merit Scholarship awardee, and she's also a great Kuchipudi dancer. She did a lot of programs for Telugu associations and across Memphis and all other different places. So it's my privilege to welcome Apurva. Then let me first introduce all the speakers, and then we'll talk to each of them. Our second speaker today is Mr. Jatin, who is the son of Mr. Raj Kamal Garu. Again, most of you might have seen Jatin when you attended sessions in Houston. He was helping Raj Kamal Garu with all the seminar arrangements, session arrangements, helping the parents in answering a lot of questions. So at that age, he has a lot of maturity. He want to help community. He is a senior in class of 2020 at Bell High School. He will be attending UT Austin Canfield Business Honors Program. He got a full ride. He is number 11 out of 726 students, again, which is a great achievement. Right? He is a National Merit Scholarship finalist. In ACT, he got 35 out of 36, perfect score in math and reading. AP National Scholar, 15 AP courses complete by HS graduation. Varsity tennis for 4 years, district student ambassador, academic quiz league, finalist 3 years in a row, and champion of 2018. So we have one who is completing their graduation. We have one who is getting into the school. And then last but not the least, we have Mr. Raj Kamal Garu, who did his MS in mechanical engineering and MBA, then executive education certificate from Yale University. And he got over 20 to 30 years of experience in counseling. He helped thousands of students to get into some top colleges, and he is helping all our community with providing all his valuable experience, all the valuable education throughout all this series of webinars. So thanks once again, Apurva, Jatin, and Raj Kamal Garu, for taking time to create that awareness, share your knowledge, help our community in this time. So let me, let us start with Apurva. Do you want to quickly introduce yourself? And then.
Sure. Yes. So again, I think that's just a brief introduction about who I am, but to summarize some of that again, so my name is Apurva Kanneganti, and I am a graduating senior this year from Harvard College, and I will be attending Harvard Medical School in the fall. And so I guess what this means is that I am like a little bit out of high school now. So in terms like I was a 2400 SAT person, not a 1600, but I am available to answer any general questions about like just what it is like to apply to like maybe Ivy Leagues, like being pre-med, if you have any questions also about like, if you're thinking really far ahead about like medical school or graduate school and how that goes. So.
Cool, Apurva. Yeah, definitely. We want your expertise in like how, right? Even though the syllabus might have changed, the questions might have changed, but always, right, that base will be same. So that your experience, right, how kids should prepare for SAT, ACT, or how is your experience in Harvard, how you got into medical school, such type of, yeah, definitely you can share all that tips, or you can share your experience with all the parents. And there are more than 200 kids attending. There are over 400 participants, but we have more than 200 kids participating this session. So all your guidance will be very valuable for them.
Of course. Are there any questions that you want me to like start off with in particular, or should I?
Yeah, we'll take the questions. First, let me introduce all the guest speakers, and then we'll start with the questions.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, thanks, Apurva. Hi, Jatin. Thanks again for taking time. Welcome to the session.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Jatin Rao. Kishore, uncle, thank you so much for the very kind introduction there. That was really great. Thank you again. So my name is Jatin Rao. I am Rajkumar Rao's son. I am a senior in high school right now. I'm just about to graduate. Actually, 3 days ago, I accepted my offer of admission to University of Texas at Austin for their very prestigious Canfield Business Honors Program. So I'm very excited about that. Me and Apurva are here to counsel you all today on the one of the most important aspects about high school and the college admissions or the college application process, and that is taking the SAT and the ACT. So we'll be here and we'll be able to answer all of your questions. Don't worry about that. And we have a lot of information to give out. So we're going to be talking mostly about the differences between the SAT and the ACT and really important test taking strategies that we have for all of you with our experiences taking the test. So it's going to be a good session.
Thank you, Jatin. Yeah, Raj Kamal Garu.
Thank you, Kishore Garu, for all that you're doing for the community. Really appreciate it. And congratulations, Apurva, on all of your accomplishments. It's when Kishore sent me your profile, I said, "Wow, how can anybody achieve so much at such a young age?" And I'm sure
Oh, not at all. Thank you.
I'm sure that every parent on this call is thinking exactly the same. So, and I know that because I'm not only a counselor, I'm also a parent. So, heartiest congratulations and good luck to you going forward.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Sure. And yeah, most of you know me already. I'm a professional college counselor. At the end of this session, Kishore Garu, I have a few slides to present about the SAT and the ACT. If it has already been discussed previously by Apurva and Jatin, when we come to that point, I will simply gloss over the slides, but there is a way for everybody to get a copy of that presentation also, like they have always been able to do in our seminars, so that I know you're recording the whole session, but there is also a physical copy of a PDF file that they can send me an email, and I'll send out the links to download from our cloud. So back to you, Kishore Garu.
Yeah, thank you, Raj Kamal Garu. Now, members have two ways to ask your questions. One is you can type your questions in the chat window. So both Jatin and Apurva will answer the questions. So if it is more regarding SAT, ACT, the recent experience, then we have Jatin who just took those exams. If it is more on how the allied colleges will be or how to prepare for such type of things, then Apurva will be answering those questions. And after that, Raj Kamal Garu will share more on the SAT, ACT preparation, all those things. Yeah, so yeah, please feel free to enter your questions in the chat window.
So I think some of the questions so far have been, at what point should you start preparing for the SAT or ACT? And I guess how much preparation should you do? I think maybe we can just both take turns, Jatin and I, talking about how we did this. But in terms of me, I took my first ACT and SAT both. So I was part of the Duke TIP program, which is a program that lets you take like either the SAT or ACT in middle school. So the first time I took the SAT was in 7th grade, and that was just kind of just like just test run. I didn't really count it for later on or anything. And then more seriously, I took both the SAT and the ACT my freshman year of high school, just as like a trial run to see like where I was and like what aspects I needed to focus on. Like, for example, I came in like fairly strong on critical reading, so that wasn't a section I spent too much time on. I was able to discover like what parts of like math or other things I needed to focus on, and also just what aspects I really needed to study. And then I was done. I ended up like getting good scores by like my junior year, and I think that helped focusing on like getting the test scores like out of my way like in the first 3 years of high school, because that freed up like junior year to be focusing on like college applications and things like that.
Okay, so that was great, Apurva. So I took my SAT towards the end of my 10th grade, or sorry, yeah, I did my SAT at the end of my 10th grade. I took my ACT at the beginning of my 11th grade, and then I took my PSAT last. So having working with my father for a few years now on his business, or for his business, we've come up with a pretty simple but very important model for how we recommend that students take the SAT and the ACT. So we recommend that we take the SAT and the ACT in your junior year. And I'm also going to include the PSAT here because that's also a very, very important test that's not really talked about. Your high school counselors don't discuss the importance of the PSAT at all. But so the way that I would suggest that all of you start preparing for this is in the summer between your 10th and 11th grade. You're not going to have much to do, but you will have a lot of time to prepare and study for this test. So take the SAT in August of your junior year, take the ACT in September of your junior year, and then take the PSAT last. So that way you'll have lots of time to prepare for both of those tests during the summer for the SAT and the ACT. And by doing well on those tests, you can tackle a much easier test in the PSAT. And I believe that we will be able to talk about the importance of the PSAT later. But for the purposes of the SAT and the ACT, the best way to do well on those tests is just to practice a lot. And there's no better time to practice for the SAT and the ACT than during the summer when we have lots of time and not any other obligations, I suppose. So that is the best time for me or all of you to be able to take those tests.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think we've also had a couple of questions coming in about like prep material and like dividing sections versus like doing the things as whole. I think for me, like again, I did also like spend quite a bit of time like over summers studying, because the best thing about that is that it lets you like time yourself like fairly like reliably in terms of just having like a solid like 4 to 5 hour chunk to just like replicate like the testing scenario like in your own house. I think that is really important. But in terms of my study strategy, like I kind of did that towards the end. I focused on doing like material review and like again just like shoring up like if it were like a particular category of math that I had some difficulty with, like doing that first. And then by the end I started doing like again keeping myself strictly to time, so it wasn't like it wouldn't be the first time for me to be like, oh, I only have this amount of time for this section or for these types of questions.
So on the topic of actual ways to practice for the SAT and the ACT, like Apurva said, the best way is to just take a lot of practice tests so that you can get comfortable with the format of the test, so that you can get comfortable with the different styles of the test, the different formats, because one is based on speed, the other is based on accuracy. And just by practicing lots of past tests, and there are lots of resources that you can use to take practice tests. The SAT and the ACT have both dedicated, very big textbooks that both the College Board and the ACT.org sells, and you can get those, and they have lots of information to prepare for those individual tests and a lot of practice tests. Another great resource to use is Khan Academy, and that's not for practice tests specifically, but it's great for brushing up on specific topics that you're having difficulty with. So the best example is for math. If you take a practice test, if you take a diagnostic test and you notice that you're having specific trouble with a certain topic, you can go to Khan Academy and you can practice there. Khan Academy was the best resource that I used to prepare for my SAT and my ACT. So take lots of practice.
So Jatin and Apurva, if I might say something here, I know there are a lot of questions about the Khan Academy. I don't know, Apurva, if you had Khan Academy when you took the SAT. I think that is a little more recent, right?
I mean, it was around, but it wasn't as popular as it is now. I don't think most of my classmates used it for them.
Right. So, just for all the parents on the call and even the kids, I just want to give you a little bit of background about Khan Academy and why the Khan Academy is so crucial to the to SAT preparation. So, the College Board has been around for what 40, 50 years, and the SAT has been the standard test for all these years. But in 2016, the College Board completely revamped the SAT, in part because there was a lot of competition from the ACT, and also in part because a lot of families around the world, indeed, around the country, indeed the world, were saying that test prep happens to be the exclusive domain of wealthy families. So, in order to make it equitable, so that somebody who doesn't have the same financial advantages of many of us on the call have about paying to go to like KD Academy or um, uh, Test Masters or whatever it is in Houston to go prepare. The College Board did something remarkable. I cannot tell you how remarkable it is. And that is that they decided to partner with Khan Academy and provide online preparation, online practice questions for free. So this is significant because let's step back for a second and think about what both the SAT and ACT both are. They're both scholastic tests. And by scholastic, we mean these are things that you ought to be learning in high school if you had been paying attention. This is basic math, this is basic English, basic reading, basic comprehension, basic grammar. And so there really isn't much to learn. And I think, as both Jatin and Apurva have said, it is all really ultimately a question of practice. So it's like when you when you start practicing for a test, you really want to practice with real official questions. The problem with referring to a Princeton Review or a Barron's Guide or any of these books, Kaplan, is it is okay, but these people, intellectual property rights are very strong in this country. So these guys cannot um, usurp or steal questions from the College Board in their books. So what they do is they try to create questions based on their own PhD test writers, but these writers are not part of the College Board. So if you rely exclusively on the Princeton Review or any of these other books, you might always fall short. You might always fall short because maybe the test questions are too tough, or maybe they're too easy, but they're never right. So it's the classic Goldilocks principle. You want it to be exactly right. And when the College Board teamed up with the Khan Academy, they essentially opened up a treasure trove of all prior tested registrations going back to the 80s. So the Khan Academy has done a superb job of cataloging those questions based on difficulty levels. And you won't believe this, there are 2,200 practice questions on the Khan Academy. And therefore, I would say that you can always go to Test Masters or some other private company, but that is more for project managing your child. But when it comes to actual content, nothing really beats the Khan Academy. And in any case, today, I was telling a family the other day that in a way, the coronavirus is a good thing that happened because most of us are learning to learn online, and Khan Academy is an online platform. So hopefully, I'm really hopeful that by this time in the fall, most of you will be so easy in adapting to and adopting Khan Academy as a resource. It is simply a superb resource. And I, I, Jatin and Apurva, please chip in and give us your thoughts.
Apurva, go ahead.
So I think broadly, again, I just don't know how outdated my advice is on any of this front because the last time I took any of these tests was in 2015. But I would say that in terms of preparing, Khan Academy is an amazing resource. I think I'm coming at it more from like the MCAT preparation front at this point, but because of these like tie-ups, like making sure that you're practicing on questions that are like very relevant to what the actual material is going to be is really important. So I would say Khan Academy is definitely a great resource. In terms of like those of you who are looking for books as like a way to back it up, I personally use Barron's to study back in the day, but again, that is 5 years ago now. So I would probably say that Khan Academy is a superior resource, but just to put it out there, I did use Barron's.
So
I'm really surprised to see some people commenting that I said that the coronavirus is good. Come on, people. I didn't say that.
really,
Come on, please.
really.
So I was simply saying that this forced closure at home has made us adapt differently. That was the point I was trying to make. I do understand that a lot of people have died. Thank you very much for reminding me.
And I think in terms of like, I know people earlier, the comments were talking about how like Corona has made it so like SATs and ACTs like might be waived, especially for like the current junior class or something. I would say that I think that is a really good opportunity. And if like you are actually like, if testing centers are closed and you like haven't been able to take a test because of that, then I think that is something that you can fall back on. But personally, I would say that if you are able to take a test and are in like the family circumstances, a situation to be able to prepare for it, this honestly is a really good opportunity. Again, like just in terms of us being at home, to be able to have like the time and the bandwidth to prepare for something like this again, just because it's like school commitments are dying down a little bit because we're all at home. So I think just making sure you use the best, like make the best out of what is a very bad situation is also really important.
Correct.
Exactly, Apurva and Apar are absolutely right. So I also saw some earlier questions saying, where can I find practice tests? I thought I addressed that, but maybe I wasn't clear enough. Both the ACT.org organization and the College Board, they both sell yearly versions of SAT and ACT test prep books. They're really big, and you can search them on their websites or on Amazon, and you can find them. Each of them has very in-depth tips on how to prepare, on how to tackle each section of the test, and they have 8 to 10 practice tests within each of them. Those are the most authentic forms, and those are the most authentic ways to get practice and take practice tests. For generic practice questions, on the other hand, Khan Academy is a great resource because you can cover all of the topics covered on the ACT and the SAT, and you'll be great with individual topics. And also, for the ACT.org has their own test prep section on their website. So go to their website, it's exactly like Khan Academy, but it's only for the ACT. So that's where you can get practice, and more specifically, that's where you can find practice tests.
Let me read out a few questions. So Apurva and Jatin, when is the right age to start for SAT and ACT preparation? At which grade you started, and what do you suggest to other kids?
So again, the first time I took it was 7th grade, but I think like in terms of actual preparation, I started towards the end of my freshman year. That was when I took like, and I think some people were confused about this. It wasn't like a trial test run. I actually just registered for the test, like, because again, I was in a situation where like we could afford for me to just take a test and being like, I'm not going to submit this. I just want to like just do it to see how I score. And so after that, like from that that summer onwards, this is the summer after my freshman year, was when I started like building in a little bit more time to study for these tests.
So the SAT and the ACT, one thing that a lot of kids don't know is that they have different caps for what's actually being administered on the test with regards to topics of test questions. So the ACT, especially the ACT math section, has math that is taught up to 10th grade math. So I personally would not recommend taking and preparing for the SAT or the ACT before or during the 10th grade. Finish your 10th grade so that you have all of the math and all of the recent English and science experience, because the ACT also has a science section, and they expect you to know lots of basic science. And if you haven't covered those science topics in a science class in by the time you take it, then you're not going to be prepared for those specific sections. So I would recommend taking it as soon as you start your junior year, so that you've covered all of the bases, at least that so that you've covered all of the content bases in school, and then you can further that practice on Khan Academy.
How many hours of preparation?
So one of the questions that was asked is, what should we focus on? Is it the ACT or the SAT? Okay, the answer to that is you should focus on both. All colleges accept both. So the way we recommend to our clients is we ask them to take whichever test that they like. Uh, Most people take the SAT because that's the more popular test. And we obviously want them to take the SAT when they're fully ready. There was another question about how many times should you take the SAT or the ACT. Our answer is always just once, because there is no other test in life that you actually get to take multiple times. I mean, the PSAT 11 is only offered once. You don't get a chance to redo. I suppose you could take your AP courses a second time, but rarely do people do that. So it is better to tell our kids to prepare properly and take it just once. So you take the SAT, look at your scores. If you think your scores are good, if you're happy with the scores, then go do the ACT. And then the ACT is a very different kind of test. So some students who do well on the ACT might find that they are not very good on the SAT or ACT. So the thing is, you have to find out what you're really good at. So take the SAT and the ACT, but there is one trick here. Do not use uh, each time you take the test, $60 or whatever is the cost of the test, you're allowed to send to 3 or 4 institutions for free your scores. I strongly recommend that you do not send those free scores to any institution, because you do not want to commit your scores to anybody without your having seen them first. So then what you do is at the end of your SAT and ACT, then you can look at both, and then you can decide which scores to send to colleges. If you have done phenomenally well on the ACT compared to the SAT, like Jatin did, so we only sent colleges his ACT score. The opposite is true for people who did phenomenally well on the SAT. For people like Apurva, who are extremely smart to have scored a perfect score in both, then obviously it is to your advantage to send both scores. So just wanted to say that.
Thank you. How many hours of preparation is required per week, Apurva?
I think it's hard for me to tabulate now, like since it's been, I guess, like 7 at this point. I think for myself, after I took my first initial test, I probably spent just on the order of like a couple hours a week, like over the summer. And then before, like, let's say like I was scheduled for a test in October, then I just tried to plan it so I was getting in like one full test a week or something, and then making sure I like had time in between to like, I guess, almost like review my mistakes and make up for those. But I don't think I ever, like at the worst, ever spent more than maybe like 6 or 7 hours a week, because I just chose to spread it out over like a longer amount of time.
Jatin?
Yeah, so following my personal preferred method for preparing for both of these tests, I prefer preparing for this test in the summer when most kids don't usually have any other obligations. And what worked fine for me was just 45 minutes to an hour a day. You don't need more than that, but we do recommend getting some really focused, intense practice in every day, especially on the subject, especially on the topics that you're more unsure about. It's always better to help your weaknesses for these tests.
Where can, how many
I think,
yeah.
or Kishore Uncle, since we're getting a little bit closer to the end, I was just wondering if it's helpful to kind of go on a separate tack. like I know there have been some questions like asking Jatin about like business degrees and like myself about like sciences. So do you think this is a good time to maybe answer a couple of those questions or? Okay. So I think for myself, like people have been asking about like choices in terms of like IB and like whether that helped me choose what I want to do. I would say that IB was just like one of the best programs offered in like one of the nearby high schools, which is why I chose to do that. I think like in terms of my classmates at college, there are a lot of IB students, but there are also a lot of people who went to like in regular APs, like high school. I would say the advantages of IB over AP, if you're in a choice to like choose, was that for me, like since all the classes were 2 years, it just really helped to like get to know my teachers more, and that helped for recommendations. Also, it's an incredibly writing intensive program. Like we have multiple like through like assessments that occur over the 2 years that are supposed to be like written and turned in. So I do think that helped me with my paper writing ability. And otherwise, in terms of like, there were a couple questions asking about just like broadly like biology, like what is the future looking like for that? I mean, as like the current pandemic illustrates, I would say that this is an amazing time to be getting into research or any other type of like biomedical related like thing, even if it is on like the business end and you're interested in biotech, simply because like research is honestly just getting more and more funding as time goes on. It's an incredibly interesting space to be in. Medicine, again, like there are always worries about whether it's being oversaturated. I mean, unfortunately, it is getting more and more competitive like every year, but at the same time, like the healthcare system does have a lot of problems. It is something that needs to be fixed. And I think that as time is going on, like we are finding ourselves in better positions to like really affect a lot of change. So yeah.
All right. So I saw many questions about or quite a few questions asking me about my plans to do business, but I personally want to keep this, or at least my advice for the SAT and the ACT. All information about specific colleges, I think, are going to be kept to another session. But I saw a lot of questions being asked about how to prepare for the reading section and other specific sections on these two tests. So to be completely honest, there's no way to get better at the reading section, but the best thing that you can do is just practice. Reading on the ACT is a lot easier than it is on the SAT, because the SAT is a more math and science based test, while the SAT is a more English heavy test. So both of those tests, for the reading and the English sections, it's really all about understanding the types of questions that they ask. So some will be analysis based, some will be inference based, and understanding how to tackle each type of question will be entirely dependent on how much practice you do for each section. Any others? Appa, do you want to jump in on that?
No, that is good, Jatin. That was good.
Okay.
I think Apurva was saying that people may want to try to get your thoughts on how you got into UT and also UT honors, business honors.
Okay. Well,
I don't think we should. I don't know if we. I'm sure we can keep talking about the SAT and ACT for some more time, but I'm sure people want to hear your experiences about UT.
okay, sure. Well, I did see a lot of other questions, so I just wanted to clarify those first.
Right.
So I decided to choose business because I wasn't really sure about what I wanted to do in college. I had a lot of interest when doing AP courses in a lot more specific majors like physics and chemistry and calculus. But I decided to choose business because it would help me incorporate all of those subjects within the college education. And another big reason is that with a physics and or a chemistry degree, the number of jobs that I'll get outside of high school, outside of college, will be a lot more restricted than the number of jobs that I would get with a mathematics or a business degree. And I ended up going business because it is a little bit more liberal arts focused. And but the business program at UT specifically is also very analytical and very math based. So I decided to combine all of my interests and take business, a best of all worlds scenario for me specifically. So the Macomb School of Business at the University of Texas is a great school. It is ranked in the top 5 of all national business schools, so it is absolutely wonderful. And within that the Macomb School of Business has about 3,000 to 4,000 students already. And within that Macomb School, there is an honors program called the Canfield Business Honors Program, an extremely competitive program that are for really the cream of the crop of high school students interested in a business degree. So if you want to know, it's the requirements to get in are quite cutthroat. Just to get your foot in the door, your student needs to have a class rank percentage of being at least in the top 2%, and needs to have an ACT score of at least 34 and an SAT score of at least 1,500. So those are all very high requirements, and you need good essays and a good interview to actually get into the program. But business is an amazing program wherever you go. But at UT, it's also a fantastic degree because of the way that they do case studies and the way that you're forced to do internships. So if your child is interested in business, I know there are not many courses that you can take in high school that would, I guess, change the direction of your child towards a business degree. But if your child is interested in business, the UT Austin is a fantastic school. So.
And I think going back to like college broadly, a couple of questions I'll also just ask about like the importance of extracurriculars. So I would say that like, especially for like liberal arts programs, extracurriculars become very important because when colleges are looking for like students they want to admit, they often want to like admit people who can like talk about a lot of different topics, like have been leaders in like multiple fields. And that often just comes from taking on like, I mean, not too many different activities because you don't want to spread yourself too thin, but showing that you are a well-rounded person who has interests like outside of like just strictly academics. Like for Jatin, it looks like tennis and like academic quiz bowl was like something for me. I also did quiz bowl in high school. Dancing was really big, just also being broadly involved in the Telugu community and stuff was what I did. And questions like that like are what enable you to like give strong answers on your college applications just about like different life experiences, like when have you failed trying to do something. So those are really important, and also just make you like someone who's much more like easy to like converse with during your interviews. Like your interviewer can ask you about the different activities that you did, like why you chose to do them. And again, I think I would say that choosing to do like a small number of activities that actually mean a lot to you so you can go into them deeply, like committing to something for like several years is like definitely like shown very well, because that usually means you can end up being like a president, like a vice president or something in that type of organization, and also just shows that you have the fortitude to like commit to something for a very long time.
Jatin, do you want to add on the extracurricular activities?
Yeah, so extracurricular activities are very important in high school, but as Apurva said, and as I know from working with APA for a long time, what colleges look for is they look for depth and not breadth. And what I mean by that is it's always better for your child to be interested in a few extracurricular activities and really be committed to them and spend a lot of time on them and get better at them so that they'll be able to write essays about them when it's time to apply for your colleges, than it is for your child to take like 10 to 15 extracurricular activities just to show that you're diversifying your profile. Do what you're interested in and be committed to it and do well, I suppose. So, but yeah, Apurva already did a great job answering that.
Thank you. Apurva, do you want to pick any other questions?
I think one question that I've been getting is like, what's the benefit of like a 6 or 7 year like BA MD program? I would say that the benefit of those programs is that you don't need to take the MCAT, which is like, so for those of you who don't know, the MCAT is like the equivalent of like the SAT, for example, for people who want to go to medical school. And it's a very long, involved test, like 7 to 8 hours. Like you need to spend at least an entire summer like full time preparing for it, essentially. And you don't have to take that test. And essentially you are guaranteed like a spot in like a medical school, which of course, like medical school admissions like get more and more competitive as the years go on. So I would say that's the benefit. I think in terms of the downside, like often, I guess in terms of like looking at the next step, like when you think about like residency for medical school, like often which medical school you went to like tends to pop up. And there's not as many like, I guess like top 10 or top 20 programs that have like a BA MD program. I think the only one might be Brown. So I think that's one thing to keep in mind. But again, if you want to save yourself like the worry or the pressure of doing an MCAT, and again, just make sure that you will go to a medical school, I think a BA/MD program is a good choice for that. In terms of extracurriculars, I think someone asked me about dance. So I think like Kuchipudi or Bharatanatyam, like it's just a really unique activity, and I think that stands out to a lot of people. Also, people who do like classical dance usually have done it for a really long time and have stuck with it for a really long time, and so that is something that looks pretty good.
So did you take any coaching outside of the school, Apurva?
So for the ACT and the SAT, I didn't. I just bought like, again, Khan Academy wasn't really a thing back then, so I just bought books. I personally just I haven't been a huge fan of like specific coaching programs, simply just because I find that they're designed to cater for like people who have like a diverse type of backgrounds and like weaknesses and strengths. And for me, I was like, I want to spend my studying time like focusing like exactly on what I am bad at and like forgetting about what I am good at. So that's why I personally just didn't choose to take any classes.
How about you, Jatin?
So my experience with extracurriculars were limited to tennis, academic quiz league, and student ambassadors. I did a little bit of coaching before high school, but most of my tennis experience was in high school, being trained by my high school coach. So I think that for at least for a varsity sport, I suppose you don't need too much outside of school coaching, but it is good to help you get better and be more competitive when competition times comes, for the sports at least. I can't say anything about dance though. I didn't do any music related extracurriculars in high school, so yeah.
I think another broad question has been about SAT subject tests. Again, if my advice is outdated, please correct me. But back when I took it, it was usually that there were definitely schools that didn't require it, but most schools like either like strongly recommended or some even required that you need to take at least like two or three like SAT subject tests. I think I personally took three, and I think I took those like during my junior year as well. I think I might have taken one of them sophomore year. And for those of you who don't know, the subject tests are just like SAT style tests, but they're in like different subjects. Like I think the ones I took were like I took math and I took Latin and I think I took like biology were the ones I took. So you can choose topics that you like are good at and then like take the subject test in that.
Yeah, I would like to add, that's excellent advice, Apurva. What we tell our families is that the best way to schedule a subject test is in the same year that you're signed up for that subject's AP exam. So if you're doing AP Physics 1, then you already have all the preparation you need to do well on the AP test. So schedule your subject test after the AP exam for the June registration. And Apurva is right. Um, most of the top colleges, they kind of hint that they would like to see two SAT subject test scores. I think Jatin went overboard. I think he took 6 of those. But
Yeah, I did.
yeah, so anytime you take an AP exam, that is the time to to back it up with an SAT subject test. One last point about the subject test is don't take SAT subject test Math 1. Math 1 is a very elementary and basic test. You're much better off taking the Math 2 test, where there are some pre-calc questions, and the curve is more friendly to you. Because so many people take the Math 1 test, the curve is very unfriendly. You can only do Math 1 or Math 2. I suggest that you wait until you have completed your Algebra 2 and some pre-calc before you take the Math 2 test? Jatin, go ahead.
Well, yeah. Oh, there's a lot of questions here. So yeah, the pre-cal tests or the Math 2 test is the test that we recommend taking. It is a much more that test specifically has a much more forgiving curve. So just to give you the facts, if you miss one question on the SAT Math 1 subject test, your score immediately drops to like a 760 out of 800. But you can miss up to 3 questions on the SAT Math 2 subject test and still make an 800. So it is harder, but because it's harder, the curve is more forgiving. So it's easier that it's better for your score. And it also proves to colleges that you're more willing to take harder tests over copping out and taking the easier option, which colleges always appreciate. So it just looks better on your profile. So I also saw a question saying or asking me to explain more about the student ambassador program. So I'm just going to take a little bit of time. I won't take too long to explain it. So my school district has this really neat program where we take 12 students. We only have 2 high schools. We take 12 students from each high school, and we have a group of 24 students that serve our district's PR and our public relations and marketing department. So we do a lot of public events, and we talk to new incoming students, and we talk to new parents. We help set up district-wide events like, well, we do a lot of work for graduation, and we do a lot of work for our own district Hall of Fame. And it's a really neat program. I highly, highly recommend that if your child's school district has this kind of program, I highly recommend that they take it because it's really good for public relations skills. It'll help you talk better in public, which will help with your interviews. And it's an overall great program that'll really look good on your profiles and your resumes. And you can also write great essays about it because there are lots of community experiences from it. So yeah.
Okay, I think other questions that we've been getting are just general test taking strategies has been a big one. I would say, again, like just making sure you practice like at home in an environment that's as similar to like taking an actual test as you can. Like going like in your room, like telling your parents like not to like bother you for like 4 hours, like actually setting a timer, and like if like you run out of time on a section, like don't go back and do it. Like you're done. And I think recreating that type of situation is really important. I think again, just also like, I mean, I feel like this is kind of common sense, but like sleeping well the night before is like super important. There's like nothing that you can really cram for these tests, I promise you. So there's no benefit like staying up the night before, getting super stressed out, and like trying to like cram in information into your head. Like that's not going to happen. So like please like sleep well the night before, like take a snack. And I think one thing that personally just works for me is like they let you take breaks on these tests. And I know like a lot of my friends used to be like, I just want to get it over with. Like I'm going to blaze through. And I really do think it's just use your entire break just to get a chance to like reset, hydrate, eat your snack, definitely bring a snack, and just get yourself in like the optimal state of mind to be able to like take it. Because especially when it comes to long tests, it's honestly kind of just like a battle with yourself. Like just making sure that you're on top of it, like you're not zoning out and your brain's like still in the game. I think another question is like, again, like this is about medical school, like where you go to undergrad matter for where you're going to go to medical school? And I would say yes. I think in terms of like, I mean, it's not explicit in the terms of like, oh, like there's like feeder schools or whatnot, but where you go to undergrad will definitely determine what type of opportunities you have. Again, like if you're going to medical school, like college extracurriculars do matter, like research, shadowing, like all of these experiences are really important. And for me, like going to undergrad in a large city like Boston, like really opened me up to a lot of like volunteering opportunities and like just, I guess, extracurriculars and things that I couldn't have been able to do in perhaps like a more rural setting or things like that. So I would say undergrad does matter.
I'll take the liberty of corroborating Apurva's answer for the test taking strategies. So my main strategy is just to be calm. It is a very lengthy test, or both are very lengthy tests, but just stay calm while actually answering the questions. For the reading section specifically, I when you're reading the passages, I highly recommend just going through the passage, reading it again, making sure that you understand it, annotating lines if you need to, and then just tackling the questions one by one, going back and reading. Be quick about your time. Be patient, but also be somewhat quick about your time, because the reading section on the SAT, I know, is not extremely forgiving with regards to time. Now for math, I know you hear almost every counselor say this, but it really does help to tackle the easy questions first, circle the hard questions, and then just come back to it, because the point of the test is to accumulate as many points as you can, and the more points that you can accumulate by quickly getting rid of the easy questions, the better score you have on the math test. And by getting through the easy questions, you'll have the confidence and you'll have a good mindset to come back and answer those harder math questions. So yeah. And also, might I add, someone asked a question about the science section on the ACT. It is actually just a glorified reading section, but it does require a little bit of science knowledge. So the best tip I have for that is at the beginning of the science section, there are about 4 questions, I suppose, or just 4 topics, and within each topic, there are about 10 questions given to each topic. So within each set of questions, there is an overview of an experiment or something like that, and always read that overview first. Understand it completely, and once you understand the overview, you just apply whatever science skills you have to answer those questions pretty quickly. So, but without reading the overview, it's really difficult to answer those questions. Okay.
So before we end the question and answer session, Apurva, do you want to give a high-level tips or suggestions or any advice for all the kids here?
Sure. Yeah, no, I think just in terms of general advice, like, so I would say that depending on like where you are, like if you're still in middle school, like if you're still in high school, like there's different things that you're probably worried about. I would say first and foremost, like standardized tests are important, and like getting good scores on them is important, but it's not like the entirety of your application. Like I know, like, I mean, especially for like parents, like where like you've come from like a setting where you have score cutoffs to get into college, that's something that doesn't always compute. I would say that you need to make sure that you're making time for like extracurriculars and like also just like educating yourself. I mean, especially here, like I think that's what interviews and essays are supposed to convey, is again just having a sense of self, like not doing like activities just for the sake of doing them, but doing them because like you're genuinely interested and you want to like affect some sort of positive change. And so, I mean, it honestly makes it harder because there's a really complicated balancing act you have to like play between like school and like studying for these studying for like the SAT and ACT and doing extracurriculars, and, like doing all of these other things. But I think just, I guess, time management and making sure that you are balancing all of these activities is something that's pretty important. And yeah, I think that's probably just my general advice.
So on the topic of general high school advice, Apurva, you pretty much said everything that I wanted to say, but I guess I'll just reiterate it for my own satisfaction. Just focus on your academics. Academics are arguably the most important thing that colleges look for. There's no reason that any of your kids should be stressing over the SAT and the ACT. They are important, but as Apurva said, they are not everything. What really matters is that you get good grades in your classes, get a good class rank, and develop your extracurricular abilities well enough that you can write good essays about them come college application time. In the end, we're all doing this to get into good colleges, and the best thing is to not stress about it, because that's only going to impede your ability to think clearly. So don't worry, it's going to be good, it's going to be fine, and you will all do good. I know you will.
That's great advice, both Apurva and Jatin. And yeah, I see that we have more than 500 plus questions, and some of those questions will be answered by Raj Kamal Garu when he completes his presentation. Like how many times you can take SAT, ACT, all such type of generic questions. Most of them will be answered. And once again, thank you, Apurva and Jatin, for taking time in your busy schedule. And yeah, it's great. You can see that we have 500 participants, 500 families actually. So nearly 1,500 to 2,000 people are spending yeah, they are interested to know from you. So we can see that how much interest everybody joined to learn from you. So yeah, thanks again, Apurva, Jatin. Wish you all the best.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Rajkamal Garu,
Yeah.
all yours.
Yeah, I'm going to thank you very much. I'm just going to show a few slides because I think Apurva and Jatin did a very, very good job. I wish if there was a way to clap and and acknowledge, we would all do it. But I think they did a great job. So I'll just spend just a few minutes on some content that we may have missed. So let me see. I'm going to share my screen.
I saw someone typed clap in the chat. Thank you so much.
Yeah, share screen, right? So
So we
Kishore
still
Garu,
have
it's okay
another
to,
30 minutes of presentation. It is not done. So we only completed the question and answer part. So Apurva and Jatin, right? I initially thought it will be done in 30, 40 minutes, but by seeing the 500 plus questions, they nearly touched each and every subject. So next 30 minutes, Raj Kamal Garu will share on the high level concepts about SAT, ACT. But yeah, you can feel free to share your blessings, best wishes for both Apurva and Jatin.
right. I won't take 30 minutes, Kishore Garu, I'm sure, but I will have to shut off your sharing. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I won't take too much time, I promise. One second. Yeah, so grades matter more than SAT scores. That's the point I wanted to make. So to what Jatin was saying before, because remember, SAT is like a snapshot of who you are in one 4-hour test, but grades are something that you're measured over 4 years. So certainly do not fret if you get a low SAT score. You can always take it again. I saw a lot of questions about super scoring. So there is a lot of innovation in super scoring. Essentially, super scoring is where if you sit for the SAT 3 times, um, you can uh, almost pick and choose which scores you can send. So colleges that super score will take your best math score and your best English score amongst those three. So it's very helpful for lots of colleges. Unfortunately, not every college super scores. UT doesn't super score, A&M doesn't super score. But in general, that's what super scoring is. Most colleges, I would say the large majority of colleges, will want to see your scores from multiple test registrations, and then they will take the scores that are most favorable to you. So that's what super scoring is. ACT is coming up with some new innovations this fall, where essentially you can, you can even take sections and you can super score sections. So it has not been tested before, but we'll see how that goes. Um, so again, I don't think Apurva and Jatin talked about this, but it is a long test, the SAT. So it has 65 minutes of reading, 35 minutes of writing and language, and there's two math tests, math sections. One is with calculator, and one is without calculator. And one important thing is there is no penalty for guessing. So you can, if you're not sure, guess away. Who knows? You might come out ahead. So this is how the score. This is how the test is structured. So I'm not going to go into it, but as I said, if you want a copy of this presentation, there is a way to get it, right? So now we're talking about the ACT, and you will see how it's different because now ACT has a science section that is added to the test, and ACT is also very similar. There is no penalty for guessing, and I already talked about this, so I will not come back to this again.
You should take both the SAT and the ACT. And if you do that, then you are under, you have the freedom to decide which scores to send to colleges. So, and in many cases, you can do both. So this is a chart. It is from a few years ago, but you will see that from the 2006-2007 class to 2011-12 class, you will see that more and more people began to submit both scores. And these are people who did well on both. But if you just do well on one and not the other, just send that score. We have beaten this question quite a bit, but as I said, sign up for the College Board and the Khan Academy practice. I saw one of the questions, several questions about, well, Khan Academy is only for the SAT. How do we practice for the ACT on Khan Academy? That is very correct. You cannot practice directly on the Khan Academy for the ACT. But if you step back, there are a lot of common sections. I mean, there is math, there is English, so there is comprehension, there is grammar. So the thing is, you do get a lot of benefits by practicing on the Khan Academy, even for the ACT. But our advice always is, I think Jatin mentioned this before, there is a book that you can buy on Amazon. It is the official ACT guide. And that is a very good guide. It's, I think, $22 or $23. It's a red book. And that ACT book is very good. So along with the Khan Academy and that red book, that's really all you need in terms of how to prepare for the ACT. But for the SAT, you can largely get most content out of the Khan Academy and the practice tests that are on the College Board's website. There are 8 of them. And you can get more from Reddit if you really want the full-length practice test. And I think I want to add one more point here about what Apurva was saying. It's very important. You really need to create that mock test environment at home when you're preparing. She was absolutely right about timing it. I would go so far as to have one of you parents proctor your child when the child takes the test. There are apps today. It is so good. You can actually get the sheets, the scoring sheets with the ovals and your HB pencils that you use, that you actually blacken the ovals. And then there are apps for both Android and iOS where you can just scan that and it will actually score, and it will provide a score exactly like the way it would appear when you actually get your SAT score. So a lot of good tools that you can leverage, but the most important thing is, as Apurva said, you want to stick to the question, and you don't want to go back to a previous section because there is not a lot on the SAT. So that's where parents can help proctor the test. So this is what we said about the ACT Academy. That's like the Khan Academy, but for the ACT. And there were lots of questions about the PSAT. And I think I talked about this during my seminar maybe last week. But the PSAT is a very, very important test, and it is often not discussed as such by school counselors. So technically, the P in PSAT stands for preliminary, but I think most of the kids on this call are so smart and they're so good that for them, the PSAT level, the P should actually stand for post, meaning you take your SAT, you take the ACT in the summer between between your 10th and 11th grades, and then your confidence level is very high. Then you can go do the PSAT 11, because when you do well on the PSAT 11, 2 advantages ensue. One is, of course, like both Apurva and Jatin, you have a chance of getting the National Merit Scholarship award, which is a great honor. Only 16,000 students all over the country get it. And the second thing is that a lot of the elite colleges like Brown and Yale and Harvard and Princeton and Stanford, they actually send out invitation letters to students who have done well on the PSAT. They don't send those invitation letters to students who have done well on the SAT. For them, it is the PSAT that is the test that is used. So
Roger, can you talk a little louder? It seems some of them having some difficulty in here. Yeah.
Oh, okay. 1 second. Let me get my headset on. I'm sorry about that. Has it been going on for a while?
Yeah. No. Just little.
Very sorry about that.
Hello.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, Rajguru. Yeah, it's
Sure,
better.
can you hear me?
Yeah. We can hear you.
Okay. So anyway, that is about the PSAT. So anyway, if you want to get a copy of this deck, most of you know what to do. Just go to Google and click on this Raw Advisors Houston College Readiness. You just click on that link, and it'll open up a simple form, and then we will send you a link to download the deck. Okay. So that's all I had to say, Kishore Garu. So back to you.
Yeah, there are few questions. So, how many times kids can take SAT or ACT?
1 second. Can you repeat the question, Kishore Garu?
How many times kids can take SAT and ACT?
There really is no limit. I mean, there are people who have taken it 5 times, 4 times, 5 times, and 6 times. So there really isn't any limit. I saw one question about when will your SAT scores time out. So typically SAT scores are valid for 5 years. So your 7th grade SAT test that you take for, let's say, Duke Tip, I wouldn't use that, right? The purpose of that is to, get into Duke Tip. So clearly, it doesn't matter how many times you take, but our recommendation is try to take it only once. Sometimes, you may have to take it a second time, but really no more than twice.
Okay. So, Arya has some question. I unmuted you, Arya. Arya Pindi.
No, I don't have a question.
Oh, okay. I see Ram Terneti has a question. So Ram Garu, you can ask your question.
Raj Kamal Garu, the big question I do have is I'm getting constant communication from various universities stating that they are relieving the mandate to take SAT and ACT. And there are many universities who have sent me that information, including Case Western Reserve and such. So what is your input on that topic, please?
There are, hello Ram, there are about 1,000 colleges and universities already that have waived, that have gone test optional. There are about 1,000, not just Case Western, right? Lot of universities are doing this. The University of Chicago is test optional. It's an elite college. It is the only elite college that is test optional. And the University of California system of all colleges, right, in the University of California system, they are still insisting on they're still so old-fashioned that they're still insisting on the SAT essay and the ACT essay. But I think they're like a relic of the past. And if the University of California system drops the essay, then I think by this time next year, they will forever retire the essay because the essay is no longer optional. There won't be an essay at all. And but I still think that most of the top 50, 60, 70 colleges in the country, maybe even the top 100, I don't yet see a move to make the SAT or ACT go away. I still think it is used. Um, I know Chicago went test optional, but they did that almost a year and a half ago, and no other top college followed Chicago's lead. So I still think that a lot of colleges find the SAT, ACT test scores as one valuable, shall we say, metric, if not the only metric. And therefore, I don't know, Ram, if the two tests will completely go away. Probably not in the next 3 to 5 years. That is just my estimate.
Thanks for the answer, Rajkumar. My main thing was more in light of the COVID situation when tests are getting canceled.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking.
That's all right.
Yeah. No, yeah. Because of COVID, you're absolutely right. I mean, yes, you're right. In fact, I think the SAT canceled all of the May tests, and now there is the ACT is still signing up students for the July test. But you're right. Given the COVID situation, you're right. For for the class of 2021, it is possible that the test scores will become optional for many colleges. You're right. I was talking more in general, not just COVID.
Yes. Yep. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yep.
One of the question is, health rotations is an on-level course in junior year. Is it advisable to take this over AP course?
Yeah. So are we by this talking about things like health science and medical terminology and physiology and anatomy and things like that? Is that what the question is? Can somebody confirm?
Let me unmute Sujata. She asked, health rotations is an online course in junior year.
Can you, Sujata, clarify that question for the rest of us, please?
This is a online course in the junior year. If my daughter likes to go for medicine, is taking health rotations advisable over the AP course?
Right.
Or go with the AP courses? Like you were suggesting her to take the AP courses, right? More AP courses is more advantage.
Right. It is not necessarily that it's in the AP course that's an advantage, right? Obviously, grade points will be impacted, but I'm just my advice to all families always about these career and technology education courses is to first understand that these courses are not meant for colleges. They're not college-ready courses. They're career-ready courses. So they're essentially meant for people who plan to graduate from high school and maybe become a phlebotomist or maybe get some elementary nursing kind of training and plan to work immediately after high school, or maybe get some vocational training. That is what these courses are for, right? So if you take one or two courses, that's fine. It establishes, it shows that you're interested in the field of medicine. But remember, as Apurva was saying before, in the traditional model, what matters before you get into a college, a medical college, for like she did, is after your 4 years of undergrad. So what courses you take in college matter a lot more than what you take in the junior year of your high school.
Okay, great. Thank you, Antegada. Thank you, Anberda.
There is one more question, Nani. They are asking like at which grade Jatin started taking his AP courses, because he took 15.
Yeah, he started doing his AP AP courses in the 8th grade on his own. That was just to try them out. He repeated both of those AP courses later in the high school year. But he took AP Physics and AP Government, which he repeated in AP in the 10th and 12th grades. But he took Human Geography and Environmental Science in the 9th grade. And then he took, that was 2, then he took 3 in the 10th grade, he took 5 in the 11th grade, and now he's taking 5. So, a lot of AP courses, of course. But, and we will talk a little bit more about this during our AP seminar whenever, I think it's next week. The College Board has said, in part because all of us like to take AP courses, well, whether we like it or not, we take them. So remember, the College Board used to give out all these certificates. I don't know if parents on the call are aware of them, but you can get like the National AP Scholar Award, right? If you take 8 AP courses at a minimum and get a 4 on an average, you would get a nice certificate from the College Board saying, oh, you're an AP National Scholar, and you can add that award into your list of awards when you're applying to colleges. So again, not because of COVID, but because of a general move by the College Board to de-stress parents, and taking out the SAT essay is also part of their effort. Essentially, the College Board has announced that many of these awards will be withdrawn. So starting next year, 2021, even if you take 8 AP courses or more, you will not get that award from the College Board because that award is being withdrawn. In fact, you won't get, there used to be remember Kishore Garu, there used to be a statewide award for best AP, for best AP performance. That is also being withdrawn. So I think everybody, that's what I said, this is a thing that is changing quite rapidly.
Two more members have questions, so we'll conclude with that. Amruta Sanskrit, I unmuted you. Amruta?
Good evening, Mr. Rao.
Hello,
I know that half the National Merit Scholar finalists get the scholarship itself. Could you please talk a little bit about the process in picking the finalists that get the scholar?
Sure, Amrita. So the semi-finalist is fairly straightforward. You just have to have a high enough selection index score, which is computed based on, as you can see on your screen, it is based on your PSAT score in reading and writing and language and math. So it's a very simple formula. If your reading score is 760, sorry, in this case, it's 760 in English and 760 in math. Essentially, you double the score in English, and you take the math component once. So in this case, in this example, a student who scored a 700 in reading and a 710 in math, you do 700 plus 700 because they take it twice, the English part. And then to that, they add math only once, and then you divide it by 10, and that's how you get a 211 SIS. So in Texas last year, the cutoff was 221. So anybody who has an SIS higher than 221, clearly the maximum SIS is 228, will qualify to be a semi-finalist. Now, once you become a semi-finalist, the question, Amrita, is how do you become a finalist?
That's not my question, sir.
What is your question?
My question is, after you become a finalist, how do you become a scholar?
Yeah. So there are after you become so there is a process, right? So from semi-finalist to finalist, there is a process. You have to go through a school evaluation and school recommendation program. And from finalist to scholar, okay, it is largely based on, as we see in the slide, it is based on the corporate sponsors that actually give out awards. So at that point, it is really, if you happen to be working for, if your parents happen to be working for FedEx or GM or Ford, then those companies will essentially sponsor you for an award. And remember, these people don't have to be finalists. They can be commended, they can be semi-finalists. It's really at that point, the scholar award is very elite, but oftentimes it reflects the values of the company involved.
Thank you.
Yep.
There's one more last question. We'll close with this one. Advait.
Hi. So my question is more based on, so I'm a sophomore, so I'm graduating class of 2022. So right now, based on whatever Mr. Jatin gave us on the suggestion for taking the SAT, ACT, and PSAT, we're supposed to take it, since I'm an incoming junior the following year, I'll be taking it August 2020, September 2020, and October 2020. And now with the COVID situation, we're completely unaware of what the future holds in terms of whether these offerings will be cancelled or whether we're going to have to take it at a later time. So what do you suggest for us in this case when we're so unsure of this?
You're an incoming junior, right?
Yes, I'm a current sophomore. So basically graduating 2022.
Right. So so I think everything that Jatin said, I think applies. So nothing should stop you from preparing for the SAT and the ACT this coming June when your school ends, and prepare June, July, and August in the hopes that the SAT will be held in August. The ACT is very confident of holding their test in July, so we don't know, right? Nobody knows the future. But there is nothing to prevent you from preparing for the test, assuming that it will be offered in August. So take the ACT in August if it is offered. Take the ACT in September. Take the SAT in August, the ACT in September, and the PSAT 11 in October. I'm assuming that all of those tests will happen. But if they don't happen, and if they're postponed, I think that the preparation that you have undergone can only help you, right? So whenever the tests are offered, that is when you're ready to go take the test.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I don't see any other questions. Yeah, I think we are good with all the question Q&A. Once again, thank you, Raj Kamal Garu. And
my pleasure, Andy. My pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. And happy Sri Ramanavami. And yeah, be safe. And tomorrow, 7 p.m., we have another session. So yeah, if you want to know about 529 plans and all other strategies to save for college, you can join tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. CST. Good night, everyone. Thank you.